This is What is the Constitution by Patricia Brennan Demuth. Hi, everybody. This is Lesson 5, Who's Coming to Philadelphia? And Part 2, we're now going to read the text, so hopefully you've already done Part 1. And I hope you still have your copy of your book handy. If not, you can follow along on the pages as I show them here. But please make sure that your brain is engaged and plugged in and ready to go. And let's move on. So this time we're going to read the chapter. We previewed it in the last lesson. Now we're going to actually read the words on the pages. We're going to be using a number of different reading strategies. And in particular, a couple that stand out are if we run into something we don't understand, we want to back up and reread. And again, if there are questions to answer, we want to read the questions first. For this chapter, it's who's coming to Philadelphia. So we want to be able to answer that for ourselves when we get done. So if you turn to page 15, I left the labels on this map just in case you're curious or you want to remember what the names of these various states are. And I'm going to begin reads so you can follow along. Chapter 2, Who's Coming to Philadelphia? In the spring of 1787, 55 delegates from 12 states got ready to travel to the Grand Convention in Philadelphia. Philadelphia prepared a big welcome. It laid out the red carpet, or rather gravel, in front of the State House where the convention would be held. The gravel was supposed to deaden the clack of noisy carriage wheels over cobblestone streets so that the delegates wouldn't be disturbed. May 14th was the date the convention was supposed to start, but hardly any of the 55 delegates made it there on time. The spring of 1787 was one of the wettest ever. Everywhere, stagecoaches and carriages got stuck in the muddy dirt roads. Aha! So that's what this picture is. It looks like they got stuck in a muddy dirt road. Back then, even in good weather, travel was hard, slow, and bumpy. Vast areas of the country had no roads. Many rivers had no bridges. The trip from Georgia to Philadelphia took at least two to 3 weeks. Nowadays, you can do that in the afternoon in a car. New Hampshire's delegates didn't arrive until July, but the weather was not entirely to blame. The state had a lot of trouble scraping up the money to send delegates. The state had a lot of trouble scraping up the money to send delegates. Okay, reread that. One man, however, slipped quietly into town 11 days early. He was James Madison of Virginia. Madison was quiet, shy, and bookish. Today he might be described as a nerd. He stood just 5 feet 3 inches and weighed barely 100 pounds. Someone once described him as no bigger than a half piece of soap. Yet his giant intellect impressed all who knew him. Lately, Madison had been poring over books about governments, both modern and ancient ones, in which the citizens governed themselves. Why did some governments fail and others succeed? Madison collected the best ideas and then wrote out his own bold plan for government. It was tucked inside his bag. That plan would end up becoming the blueprint for the United States. James Madison would play such an important role at the convention that he became known as the father of the Constitution. So again, I would guess that this is supposed to be James Madison reading over all the books that he was poring over before he went to the great convention. A day before the convention, the great George Washington arrived. Aha, so that's what's going on here, huh? A military guard dressed in spiffy uniforms and shiny black boots welcomed him to town with cannon fire and gunfire. Cheering crowds lined the streets. Since the end of the war, Washington had lived happily at his plantation in Virginia. However, a strong sense of duty now called Washington back to public life. He feared that all the bloodshed of the war would have been for nothing if the government didn't become stronger. So there's his home at Mount Vernon. Washington's presence at the convention was all important. His steady leadership made other delegates willing to listen to differing opinions. By May 25th, men from 7 states were present, enough to get started. The men gathering in the State House met 6 days a week from 10 o'clock to 3 or 4 o'clock. Who were they? They were all white men, most of whom were well off and educated, and highly educated. Many were young, in their 20s or 30s. Yet, every single one already had lots of experience in government. Several had signed the Declaration of Independence. 3/4 had served in the old Congress. Many were battlefield heroes of the Revolution. They were a fashionable group too, wearing breeches, silk stockings, and powdered white wigs. Well, that's kind of what we see here, huh? 2 important leaders were missing, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. They were an ocean away, representing America's interests in France and England. The oldest delegate by far was Benjamin Franklin, who lived right in Philadelphia. At 81, Dr. Franklin still had a quick mind, but his body ached from gout. Bumpy carriage rides were too hard on him, so he was brought into the convention on a French sedan chair. 4 prisoners, released from jail for the day, carried him in. And here's Ben Franklin again. So there's that picture of him. Like George Washington, Ben Franklin brought a sense of calm and dignity to the convention. In the coming months, as tempers rose, everyone would need that.